The last thing you expect to hear through a crack in a hospital door is your own death being calculated like an unwanted tax bill. You lie there in the dark, hooked to monitors that beep every few seconds, listening to the voices of people whose scraped knees you used to bandage, debating whether your life is actually worth the cost of keeping you breathing. Welcome to Dad's Pure Revenge. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. If you have ever given your heart, your time, and your hard-earned money to people who treated you like an inconvenience when you needed them most, drop a comment down below and let me know where you're listening from. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep sharing these stories of quiet justice. For 19 years, I thought I was part of a family. My name is Garrison Miller. I am 61 years old, and I spent 34 years working as a senior estimator for a commercial masonry company in eastern Ohio. It wasn't flashy work, but it was steady. It paid for a 4-bedroom brick colonial on 3 acres in Uniontown, allowed me to build a respectable nest egg, and gave me the ability to retire early with a solid pension and a modest investment portfolio. People often ask why a man like me didn't start a family earlier in life. The truth is simple, though it took me years to speak it without a lump in my throat. When I was 26, I married my high school sweetheart, Laura. We spent 5 quiet, beautiful years together, trying to build a future. But life had other plans. Laura was diagnosed with an aggressive autoimmune condition, and after a grueling 2-year battle, she passed away just before our 32nd birthday. We never had children. For nearly 10 years after Laura died, I poured myself into my work, my workshop, and my solitude. I wasn't looking for love. I was just surviving, brick by brick. By the time I turned 42, I had made peace with being a bachelor for the rest of my days. Then I met Evelyn. Evelyn was 36 at the time, working as an administrator at a local medical clinic. She was a warm, resilient woman, but she was carrying a heavy load. Her ex-husband had abandoned her and her 2 young boys 7 years earlier, leaving behind a trail of unpaid credit cards and back rent. When Evelyn and I married 19 years ago, when I was 42 and she was 37, her sons were 11 and 9. Derek was the older one, guarded and sharp. Connor was 9, quiet and observant. I loved Evelyn deeply, and because I loved her, I threw myself into being a real father to those 2 boys. I didn't try to force myself into their lives or demand they call me dad right away. I just showed up. I took them to Little League practice, sat with them through late-night high school algebra, paid for Derek's tuition at Ohio State, and cut the check for Connor's down payment on his first modern condo in downtown Akron. I bought them their first cars, paid off Derek's personal credit card debt when he made foolish choices in his mid-20s, and opened my workshop to them whenever they needed tools, trucks, or advice. My mistake was simple. I believed that if you love people without keeping score, they will naturally extend that same dignity to you when the night gets dark. I treated them like my own blood, assuming blood-level loyalty was a 2-way street. I never forced a contract, never asked for a promissory note, and never demanded gratitude. I just gave, believing that care creates character. That assumption held together fine as long as the sun was shining. But human nature doesn't reveal itself during the good times. It reveals itself when the floor drops out. It started on Tuesday, March 11th, at 7:42 in the morning. I was out in the garage, sweeping up pine sawdust from a bookshelf I was building, when a sudden heavy pressure settled right in the center of my chest. It wasn't the sharp, stabbing pain you see in movies. It felt like someone had parked a heavy iron engine block directly on my sternum. The air stopped coming. My knees folded, and I dropped onto the concrete floor, knocking over a tin of brass screws that scattered like tiny teeth across the bay. I managed to reach my phone in my back pocket and called my old neighbor and lifelong friend, Hank Vance. Hank lives 3 houses down, a 63-year-old retired mechanic who spent 30 years under grease-stained hoods. Hank didn't ask questions. He was in my garage within 90 seconds. He didn't waste time calling an ambulance to wait on county dispatch. He pulled me into his 2017 Ford F-150, ran 3 red lights along Route 619, and pulled right into the emergency bay at Akron General Hospital. While the medical team rushed me onto a gurney, Hank stayed right there, holding my jacket and my wallet. He sat in that vinyl waiting room chair for 8 hours straight, calling Evelyn, keeping track of my vitals, and fetching warm water for the nurses. When my condition stabilized enough for me to breathe, I saw Hank standing at the foot of the bed, his work boots still dusty from his driveway. He didn't say anything grand. He just patted my foot through the thin hospital blanket and said, "We're getting this sorted out, Garrison. Don't you worry about the shop. That's what a real man does. He doesn't calculate cost when a house is on fire." By Thursday morning, the head cardiologist, Dr. Alistair Finch, gave us the hard reality. I had severe 3-vessel coronary artery disease combined with a sudden, aggressive heart valve degradation. I needed an emergency triple bypass and a mechanical valve replacement, followed by an intensive, specialized post-operative care package at a private rehabilitation facility in Cleveland. A program that my specific insurance tier, due to a recent policy transition during my early retirement, would only cover 30% of. The immediate out-of-pocket medical expenses, surgical fees, and required recovery care totaled nearly $210,000. Because I had retired early at 58, a large portion of my wealth was tied up in my house and my liquid index accounts, which had a strict 30-day withdrawal penalty clause unless liquidated under specific real estate asset sales. Evelyn was frantic. She sat at my bedside, her face pale, holding my cold hand. "We'll sell the lake house in Michigan, Garrison," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Or we'll put this house on the market immediately. We can downsize. We can sell the Mustang in the barn. We can sell everything to save you. I don't care about the property. I just need you alive." I squeezed her hand weakly. "We'll figure it out, Evie," I rasped. That afternoon, Evelyn called a family meeting in the small private consultation room just down the hall from the cardiac intensive care unit, room 314. Derek, now a 30-year-old regional sales executive, and Connor, 28 and working in commercial real estate, arrived around 2:15 p.m. I was supposed to be asleep. The nurses had given me a mild sedative around 1 o'clock, but the steady throb in my arm from the IV line kept me awake. I managed to ease myself out of bed, holding the rolling IV pole with one hand and gripping my hospital gown with the other. I needed to walk a few steps as the physical therapist had suggested, so I shuffled slowly down the carpeted hallway toward the family room to tell Evelyn I was awake. The heavy wooden door to the consultation room was pulled to, but it hadn't clicked shut. It was propped open by about an inch. I was about to knock when I heard Derek's voice. It wasn't filled with concern or worry. It was flat, measured, and sharp. The tone he used when analyzing a bad quarterly investment report. "Mom, you're not listening to reason," Derek said softly. "You're talking about putting the Uniontown house up for a fast cash sale and signing away the equity from the Michigan property. That's your security. That's our family's baseline. Derek, his life is on the line," Evelyn said, her voice cracking. "Dr. Finch said if we don't commit to the Cleveland specialized rehab program right after the bypass, his heart won't survive the strain. The standard facility insurance covers has a terrible recovery record for valve replacements." Then came Connor's voice, cool, dismissive, and utterly devoid of warmth. "Mom, think about the numbers," Connor said quietly. "Garrison is 61. His heart is basically shot. If you liquidate the real estate now at a fire sale discount, you're draining the whole estate. What if you spend $200,000 and he dies anyway 6 months from now? Then what do you have left? You'll be broke, and we'll have to support you." I stood there in the quiet corridor. The fluorescent light above me hummed softly. The IV pump gave a sharp beep beep beep. Evelyn gasped. "Connor, how can you say that about the man who raised you? He paid your college tuition. He paid off your condominium. And we appreciate that, Mom," Derek chimed in, his tone condescendingly gentle. "But this is business now. Don't waste the money. What if he doesn't make it?" Those exact 9 words hung in the air like poison in a clean room. Don't waste the money. What if he doesn't make it? If you throw all the assets at this, Connor added, there's nothing left for the family future. No inheritance, no safety net for us, no equity in the Uniontown house. You need to tell the hospital to use the basic state-funded insurance plan and let nature take its course. If he makes it, great. If he doesn't, at least the house and the land stay in the family. I didn't open the door. I didn't shout. I didn't burst in and make a scene. Real pain doesn't make you scream. It makes you deathly quiet. I turned my IV pole around, the little plastic wheels squeaking against the polished linoleum, and walked slowly back to room 314. I climbed into the high hospital bed, pulled the stiff white sheet up to my chin, and stared at the dark screen of the wall-mounted television. If you're finding this story compelling so far, take a quick second to hit the like button and subscribe to Dad's Pure Revenge. Sharing your thoughts in the comments helps other fathers find our community, and I truly appreciate your support. In that quiet room, something inside me broke clean off. Not my heart, but the foolish idea that years of sacrifice automatically buy you loyalty. I realized that to Derek and Connor, I wasn't the man who taught them how to drive a stick shift or paid off their debts. I was just an aging line item, standing between them and a real estate inheritance. They thought my life was a bad financial risk. Friday, March 14th, 8 a.m. The surgery was scheduled for the following Monday. That morning, while Evelyn was at home taking a shower and changing clothes, I made a private phone call. I didn't call a broker, and I didn't call my stepsons. I called my attorney, Clinton Webb, a man I'd known for 25 years, and asked him to come to the hospital with 2 witnesses from his firm. When Clinton arrived at 10:30 a.m., wearing his usual worn tweed jacket and carrying a brown leather briefcase, I laid everything out in plain, unvarnished terms. "Clinton," I said softly, my voice raspy from the oxygen tube, "I need to restructure everything. Today, Garrison, you're about to go into major open-heart surgery," Clinton said, leaning over the bed rail with genuine concern. "Are you sure you want to handle estate changes right now?" "I've never been clearer in my head," I told him. "I want every single asset that is solely in my name. The Uniontown home, the Michigan Lake cabin, my investment portfolio, and my personal tools and vehicles, placed into an irrevocable living trust, effective immediately." We spent 2 hours going over the terms. I made sure every single detail was legally airtight, bulletproof, and utterly clear. First, I ensured Evelyn was fully protected for the rest of her natural life. The trust stipulated that she would have lifetime residency in the Uniontown house, with all property taxes, maintenance, and a generous monthly living allowance fully paid out from the dividends of my investment portfolio. She would never want for a single dollar, no matter what happened to me. Second, I appointed an independent corporate trustee, a reputable wealth management firm in Cleveland, to manage the assets, explicitly removing Evelyn from any financial management duties so her sons could never pressure or manipulate her into signing over deeds or liquidating equity. Third, I addressed the ultimate disposition of the estate upon my eventual death, or upon Evelyn's passing. The entire residual estate, the 3 acres in Uniontown, the Michigan cabin, the portfolio, and all liquid funds, would not go to Derek or Connor. Not a single cent. Instead, 50% of the total final estate value was designated to be